In this video, we're going to take a look at the 4x4 Adventure Explorer 1/18th scale mobile base. We're going to go over the idea for this vehicle, the criteria for the design, mock-up and iteration, and then a test run. If you were a kid who grew up in the 70s, you might remember the TV show Arc 2. It starred 3 people and a monkey who were the crew, and they drove around this awesome vehicle trying to save the world. And it was this vehicle that I really remember because it had everything they needed. It had their food, their laboratory, even a vehicle that came out the back. It was a true mobile base. And this was something you'd see in a lot of other movies or shows. There was Damnation Alley that had this really amazing vehicle that kind of felt similar to the Arc 2, but could go anywhere. G.I. Joe vehicles that, were mobile labs or, kind of adventure command bases that could go through any terrain. There was always a sandcrawler from Star Wars the Jawas would live in. And even the Millennium Falcon felt like a mobile home for Han Solo where he could live or set up base wherever he landed. Classic Lego Space always felt like it gave a mobile base feel to their spaceships, with the ability to drive a little car out the back and go explore. And then the remake recently even expanded on that by giving a med bay in the back, but also including the original car. And so inspired by all that over the years, I've made some like Lego and Duplo vehicles with my kids that were all-terrain vehicles that had helicopters and, motorcycles on them and laboratories and, all kinds of different things for playing around. And then recently the HasLab for the Rebels Ghost was announced, and some of the images of the interior just got me thinking again about that mobile base feel. I'm not really familiar with the Ghost. I didn't watch Rebels, but the interior felt really inspired by the Millennium Falcon, but kind of taken to the next level with the bunk beds and all the different areas. And I thought, wow, this would be a really cool toy to get, but it's gigantic and expensive. And I was thinking maybe I could make something myself. So what's our criteria? Well, first we got to have a cockpit, right? You need that place for the crew to sit and to, look at what they're being attacked by, what they're going to run into, and, just kind of joke around with each other. So it's got to fit at least 2 people and a third over the shoulder. We also need a rec area, so some place for the crew to hang out, relax and play chess or, play with their lightsabers. Then we need sleeping area. The crew's got to sleep. When you're not on watch, need some bunk time. Got to get your rest. Then we need a workshop and a crane. There's something awesome about a crane, being able to lift things, repair your vehicle. Your ship's going to break down. Need that. Need a radar dish or some kind of telescope because you're exploring, you're, trying to get a message to someone. There's always need for that kind of stuff. And then weapons, of course, you need a turret or something to fend off the creatures and the things that are going to attack your ship or your craft. And then you need a mini craft, like something small like a helicopter or a little car that drives out, just something to go on scout missions. And then big wheels. So I think this thing's going to roll, so we need some big wheels, at least 4, and they got to be like 4x4 and all-terrain. This isn't the first time I've sort of thought about this idea and I mocked up drawings like this G.I. Joe tactical battle platform with, 4x4 wheels put on the legs or, kind of flying landing craft or different vehicles like this. Here's a recording of a sketch I did, just playing around with these ideas a couple years ago and, just thinking about like some kind of cool, like this was like an 8x8 vehicle, but it was huge, 2-story. And like a big crew on it and stuff like that. I think we want to do something smaller, something that, feels like a little bigger than, say, the G.I. Joe APC, but not as gigantic as the Ghost, HasLab they're doing. But I think that's enough drawing. Let's get some cardboard and our X-Acto knives and some hot glue and start just mocking things up. So I had the idea of what chassis I wanted to use. I bought this pretty cheap, like 4x4. I think it's 1/10 scale Unimog, and it's a really nice vehicle, but and really cheap. But it wasn't that great, like not super well built. But then I saw this other YouTuber, Ampro, and he improved the the suspension on it. So I 3D printed, modeled some parts the way he had to get that working better. I also decided I wanted to replace the servo in the front and the steering. If I'm going to do all this work, I kind of wanted a good, strong, sturdy platform to build this vehicle on. And so, here I got new servo in there, improved the steering linkage, and it's got the better suspension. So I thought, like, okay, cool, this is a good base. This is a good platform to build it on. And, I'm always cheap and trying to save money. So, why not reuse this? This was used in my classified scale vehicle. So there you see the flat platform I printed. So good to go. So now the fun begins. We've got a nice flat platform, and we can pretty much do whatever we want in there. I started mocking up guys on there in seats. I mocked up some seats, and then I was really inspired by this Playmobil lunar lander kind of rover vehicle my kids had, and I pretty much just copied the window design for that. I thought big open windows would be great for the front, where we could see the crew and they're operating, and they could see outside really well. Figure out where they're going, and just it's a little kind of unrealistic. If this is going to be in some military situations, you don't want giant windows, that make your crew an easy target. But I'm going to kind of let that go just for the fantasy of it, and it's just more fun. Really love the look of that. So here I'm doing some tests outside just to see what does this look like, scale wise. Does it feel like that would be a good kind of front for it? And I'm really happy with like the visibility of the crew and filming it and just kind of seeing, the figures in there and the seats I mocked up. And it's got the two seats side by side and then room for a third in there if we wanted to do that. Or, it could even probably fit more seats in there. And if you hear the motors kind of struggling there, they are. We're going to address that later. And, we just want to beef up this chassis. So we're gonna have to do something about that. But let's get on to the next part. We got the cockpit looking good. What about the next section of this vehicle? So I really love that kind of curved couch from like the Falcon and the Ghost. So I wanted to integrate that into the vehicle here. So I kind of mocked one up and made one. And I just made like a box for the next section of the vehicle. I was thinking making this modular would be really cool and just keep mocking things up. So I made a little table, little bunks, and I'm starting to like the feel of this kind of, the overall size of it and the massing. Thinking about like where would a turret go, where would the crane go, grabbing different parts from different vehicles and just trying things out. So we have to kind of go back to the chassis and kind of address some of the problems there. So the electronic speed controller and the electronics that came with this aren't the greatest. It's all just integrated on one board. So I kind of knew it wasn't that great, but didn't want to have to fix it. But decided if I'm going to put all this work into it, I want a really good base and a good chassis. So I got a new speed controller and a new controller remote for it, and decided to build a little box to house all that. So iterated on that, 3D printed some different designs that would house the receiver and the speed controller, and then that would also let me put the battery underneath the platform where the old chipset used to be, or the old board used to be. So that actually worked out really good, and it still fit under all those plates that I already made. So everything is like integrated. It's really strong now. The motors, because I didn't mention I doubled up the motors on this, which was an upgrade to this original kit. So now this electronic speed controller can handle the extra power going to that, and we don't have to worry about the motors not being able to get over a rock or something like that. It should have plenty of power. And I even put a little bump in the steering bracket thing so that the suspension could move without that hitting. So everything is kind of bulletproof now with the chassis. So let's get back to designing. Okay, so we got the living quarters here with that kind of curved couch and our bunks. And I'm thinking like that curve doesn't really fit in this rectilinear kind of room. So I went back to my old protein powder containers, which I've used in other builds in the past. And I started thinking about how could those be a part of the shell of this vehicle, and started cutting those up and made a wall that was kind of curved to the shape of the couch, and that just worked out beautifully. I love the idea that like that gives some extra volume. It also lets me make that room longer and skinnier, and gives a reason for those curves. And then I'm going to put the turret on top of that, which is the reason you would have that rounded shape to kind of house the turret and the turret basket. So it all kind of starts to make sense and feel a little more integrated and a little more, kind of form following function and not just ramming that in, which, if you look at the Ghost, it does feel like they just kind of put this like curved couch into a box. Whereas on the Millennium Falcon, it kind of makes more sense because of the curves in the Falcon. So, yeah, so I've got a design. I even put the workshop on the back, and that gives room for, like engine repairs and maybe putting in that other vehicle in there. And oh, I forgot to secure this to the chassis. So I figured it was just holding on with like blue tape and stuff so far, and that was doing good. But definitely have to secure it down better. But I'm loving how the overall look of it feels. So I ended up putting some screws down through the cardboard into the plastic. And again, this is temporary. I'm gonna have to redo the whole look of this. Maybe 3D print it. Maybe do it with styrene. I'm not sure yet. But look at that. I'm really excited with the way those curves work, and then the curves with the bunk, and then the curve in the back, which creates almost like a turret mount for the crane. And there, I'm thinking about, what kind of helicopter am I going to use? I might use a Fang helicopter, G.I. Joe Fang. I've got some busted up ones that I might use, and maybe the crane can lift that onto the roof or off from the roof, and having some mini bikes in the back, or just some motocross bikes. So lots of possibilities, but we need to start wrapping up this video, so let's take it for a test and see how it does with the whole thing on there. I'm really happy now that I went through and redid the speed controller. It's a lot of extra weight now, and not having to worry about the power kind of conking out like while you're climbing something or going over something. Just feels really good. Here you can see it's pretty nimble. I mean, considering how big that thing is, it's like, giant mobile home on the back of this 4x4. And going over that hose isn't that easy, and it's doing a pretty good job. I love seeing that, the whole base, like it really is a mobile base, like the Arc 2, or like, the whole thing that kind of got this started. The little gas mask dog there. He's like the monkey from Arc 2. And then we've got these gorgeous slow-mo scenes where you can see it moving on that suspension that we fixed up, and steering well with the new servo. And I'm really liking the overall forms and volumes of the body of this vehicle. Like, I feel like that one big like cylinder really works as the kind of base for that turret. I'm not sure what kind of cannon that thing's going to be. And then the other cylinder, kind of on the opposite side in the back to work with the crane. So I think that's about it for this video. I think we're in a good place to stop, and the next part of this project is going to be really trying to finish it off, and 3D print and styrene, and just get the look of the thing to look finished and polished and painted up. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you like this project and where it's going. Hope to see you in the next one. And Yo Joe.